Actually, yeah. Now you're just giving me a good segue to go into. I want to really dissect how they do this, because you mentioned Shawn Michaels, Rey Mysterio, The Rock, and now Undertaker. These are such distinctive characters. They're so distinctive. Like, even they're more distinctive to some movie superheroes that we know.
Yeah.
Like, obviously they're created because they're people who see them in shows weekly, week out, but they can really pin down an essence of someone and really like just drill it and nail it.
Yeah.
How do you think they do it? How do you think they create these people who become such cultural icons? Like, I know obviously, like you talk for The Rock, for example, it's his voice, his stage presence, his inflections, the things that he will stand for in the ring or outside of the ring.
Yeah.
But like outside of that, how do you think WWE does that so much better than any other entertainment, where they can really get essence of a character and make you remember them for the rest of your life?
Okay, that's a good question. I think when it comes to Undertaker and Rey Mysterio, those are two main examples. I think that's the best example of how sports and entertainment mesh, because the way they wrestle and show off their athleticism matches with every single other element of their character. Undertaker wears black, he's tall, he's menacing, he rolls his eyes in the back of his head. So he wrestles in a very menacing way.
Yes,
he'll choke them, and he'll be a bit methodical. He'll do the sit up and they're scared.
Yes.
Everything complements the character they're trying to present.
Yes.
Rey Mysterio was like our superhero. So what's he gonna do? He's gonna do, like you said, elastics. He's gonna jump around. He's gonna be almost like Spider-Man. You know, he's gonna do all those springboards. He's gonna do things that would make a kid inspired and want them to be like him. And Undertaker is going to do things to make people think, wow, this guy is horrifying.
It's scary.
Stone Cold was very, like I said, he was very disrespectful. He's very reverent. The way he'd fight, it would be like a bar brawl. You know, he's punching, he's putting the middle finger at the referee. He's saying, get the F up my way. He's swearing. It's complementing the Stone Cold character. So you don't look at it, and sometimes when you look at a wrestler, you don't even look at it and think, wow, this guy's wrestling. You're almost looking at it as, that's who he is.
And he's just fighting.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just fighting.
That's him.
That's him. That's what he would do anyway.
With baby faces, with the good guys in wrestling, their job is to kind of get the crowd on their feet and get them excited. So they're most likely to have the exciting part of the match. They'll run more. They'll have a lot more explosive power, more agility. The bad guy would try and slow things down to get them to boo, to get the fans to root for them to get beaten up. That also plays an element in us liking the good guy and not liking the bad guy. You have someone like Randy Orton. I don't know if you...
Of course.
Like...
RKO is my favourite.
RKO, like, bro, that was everywhere, innit? Oh my god.
I used to do that to my little brother. Just run around. I still do it to him. Just sitting there, man, in his face, I'm like, RKO.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Randy Orton is like one of the best bad guys ever. And he had the whole Viper thing, you know, he was very, like, sinister.
How do I just... That's the kidding me, bro. It'll never go away. That's the kidding me just coming out.
Like, you know, all that stuff. So then he'd wrestle to kind of attribute to that. It's a very slow, methodical type thing. It's things like that. So everything from the costume to the way they talk on the microphone to the way they wrestle to the way they celebrate, it all complements the character they're trying to present to us. And that's what makes it... easy for us to relate to certain.
So you mentioned Babyface and the heel and all these things. Can you give me like a rundown of just the different roles people play in wrestling matches? So obviously you mentioned the heel. What is the role of a heel? What is the role of a babyface? How does that get the audience on their side? The crescendo they reach when this like obviously you've watched so many wrestling matches, you must be able to dissect it. Could you just do that for me quickly? Just understand.
Yeah, so like the babyface is basically the good guy. He's the superhero, the protagonist. He's the guy that most people pay money to see win. They hope that person wins, if done right. Sometimes a babyface isn't popular, but yes, that's the guy that they're supposed to win. They're supposed to be the exciting part of the match. They're supposed to be the energetic part of the match. They're supposed to be the one that we're all rooting for. So the bad guys, the villain, that's the one we pay to see lose. We want to see them get beaten up. We want to see them get what's coming to them. And we're basically there rooting for them to fail. So they'll try and do as much possible to get what's called heat, which is negative energy, booze. So they'll say things like, this town sucks. Like, I can imagine, like, for example, someone can say something like, oh, London stinks.
Mid.
Yeah, London. You've seen that video? Yes, that's the heel. That's MJF. MJF, who works for he doesn't work for WWE. He works for an alternative wrestling product called All Elite Wrestling. So he's a great example of a heel, because he will do his absolute best to get a negative reaction. He'll call a city mid. He'll hit a low blow. You know, dirty tactics. You know, that's a great example of a heel. He's considered one of the best heels of this decade, actually.
Okay, on that topic, what's some of the best good heels? What are some of the best baby faces? And also, what are some of the people that subvert that and make you actually cheer for the heel?
Okay, that's a good question. Okay, so the best good guys, Stone Cold, of course, is one of them. Hulk Hogan was a great babyface in his day. Recently, there's a babyface by the name of Cody Rhodes. He's currently WWE champion. Rey Mysterio, of course, is a great babyface. Rey Mysterio was one of those guys where if you hit him, they boo you instantly. Like, Rey Mysterio was just that popular. And Rey Mysterio is one of the few wrestlers who, I believe, in WWE has never been a bad guy.
Really?
Never been a bad guy in WWE.
Just know that that's his role.
They are not going to boo him. Jeff Hardy was another one. And honestly, ironically enough, Undertaker is a great good guy. Undertaker was always scary and dominant, but it kind of went from a thing where he'd subvert from being an absolute villain to almost like the anti-hero and the elder statesman of wrestling. And I think what happens a lot with wrestling is sometimes people can gather such a reverence and respect for you and what you've done for the business that they almost can't boo you, because you've just given so much to the game. It's just a pleasure to see you work. And that's what Undertaker was. Undertaker, as good of a villain as he was never booed, like strongly booed. It was always some type of, he always earned respect from fans. And sometimes they try, that's the thing, sometimes it's so funny. Sometimes villains will try their best to get booed, and the fans are like, no, we love you.
We love you too much. And especially Undertaker is one of those people, I'm guessing, because like you said, like people were like, oh my god, Undertaker's here. You know, and that kind of like amazing factor that he brought to the show, like to like, I remember, like, do you remember when he lost for the first time?
Yes. Yeah.
What was that like?
God. Okay. So, I did not expect that to happen. I didn't like that it happened. And I'll never forget messaging my sister, who was just absolutely incensed that the Undertaker. She was so angry. She's saying, "No, this is awful. This is the worst thing ever. I don't hate this." She was on her honeymoon.
It's important, bro.
She was on her honeymoon just shouting for 2 hours about how awful this was. Her poor husband's trying to get some sleep in Barbados. And it's just like, but it was because the streak meant so much to wrestling fans. And that's the thing. Sometimes it's just deeper than your regular wrestling thing. It's like, this was special, you know? Like, and yeah, the streak.
It had to end at some point, right? It couldn't, I mean, it loses its value if it never ends, you know, but like how it ends is very much important.
That's the thing. Well, this has been the question ever since it did end. Like, was it the right time to end it? Should it have ended? Because the thing is, there's so much things in wrestling that you can do. Do you have to end this particular thing? And also, the person, wrestling is very much about passing the torch, giving it to the next generation. And maybe you could argue that a younger wrestler would benefit from the heat, the negative energy of being Undertaker. But Brock Lesnar is the person who actually beat him, and Brock Lesnar was a made guy, you know, UFC champion, one of the biggest names to ever be associated with professional wrestling. Did he need it? And he was also a part-timer, so he wasn't really a part-timer. Means you're not there every single week, you're there at select dates. So it's like, well, you're not even really going to keep the heat, you know? And then we started cheering him in August. So it's like, well, we didn't even hate you for it. It's like, it's just one of those things. It's like, I don't know. I think it should have definitely been done better. Undertaker himself has said that Roman Reigns should have done it. Should have been in the streak. Roman Reigns is one of the new faces of WWE. He's pretty much ran the show for a decade, and for the past 4 to 5 years he's hit his magnum opus as the tribal chief, which is perhaps one of the best villainous characters ever. And Roman is a rare occurrence because it's like, he is a villain, but we have so much respect for his character, so much respect for him as a superstar. We enjoy his matches so much that as much as we boo him, we love to see him. He's like, you know, it's like it's a weird mix of love and hate with the Roman Reigns character.
Okay, here's the question, man.
Okay.
The question. And I think we've been kind of dancing around this whole time. I really want to just lock in on it. It's like how storytelling plays a factor in WWE.
Right, okay.
Because I think that's one of the most impressive things that WWE can do. It spins a story for 10 plus years about this one person and like makes you really love, or you said hate, or like have this roller coaster of emotions. And like you mentioned, most good guys end up as bad guys and then back again because that just the times demand it, you know, or something like that. Talk to me about storytelling. What are some of your favorite stories in wrestling, or some of like even using Roman Reigns as an example of like, you know, like or who he's become? Yeah, talk to me about how storytelling in wrestling works and how you've loved that.
Okay, so I'll try and use a couple of names that I haven't used already, that I haven't name dropped, but the first story that comes to mind is the Bloodline, which is Roman Reigns' family. Him, his cousins, the Usos, Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, Tongaloa, they are all part of this Samoan dynasty, which is a big-ass family of wrestlers. So they're cousins with The Rock. They have one of them's dad is Umaga, one of them's uncle is Rikishi. So it's just this big dynasty of Samoan wrestlers all under the same family tree. And what has been occurring for the past 4 years is just this one singular story of Roman Reigns being the appointed chief of that family, and the dynamics and responsibilities that arise from it. So you have certain people feeling that Roman Reigns is not a rightful tribal chief because he is very abusive to his cousins. When they lose, he reprimands them, he slaps them, he assaults them, and that builds to the story of every single character in the Bloodline, because then you have his cousin Jey Uso, who loves his family, but he is a good guy at heart, and that made the fans resonate with Jey Uso. And then you have Roman Reigns, who is the dad of the family, and he's abusing his little ones, and that makes the fans dislike Roman Reigns. And then you have Jimmy Uso, who's protecting his brother at first, but then he turns on his brother because he's also got selfish intentions because he wants to be the chief. Then you have Solo Sikoa, who's kind of a wild card in that no one really knows where his allegiance is or his desires until he turns on pretty much everyone. You know, and then you have Jacob Fatu, who is like an absolutely insane athlete. I'm going to show you some. He's 300 pounds and he moves like Rey Mysterio.
Really?
He is insane. And he's just this savage Samoan who is just like, he's like, if Solo Sikoa is Dushane, Jacob Fatu is Sully. He's just on bats for no reason.
He's on crack.
He's ready to jump off anything to injure someone. Like that's Jacob Fatu. And then you have The Rock, who then enters the storyline. He comes back, and he comes back as the final boss. And he's now almost the elder of the family, and he's who Roman Reigns looks to, and Roman Reigns. And this is what I'm talking about when it comes to how I love dynamics and how different things work. Roman Reigns was so demanding that Jey Uso acknowledges him, so demanding that Jimmy Uso acknowledges him, so demanding that Solo acknowledges him. The Rock is his elder. He doesn't demand, he asks. It's different.
Different dynamic.
Different dynamic. That's Big Bro. You can't talk to Big Bro like that. He asks him, he's like, can you acknowledge me, please? like literally, like his voice gets weak. Because the dynamic's different. But The Rock does it. But it's made very clear that The Rock stands above the table.
Yes.
They make the dynamic very clear. And I like that. I like that Roman reacts to Jey. That's what I like about storytelling in wrestling. When people act differently to certain things. Roman Reigns acts differently to Jey than he does to The Rock. Than he does to Jimmy. There's a Solo. Like all of that. Who does he respect more? Who does he like more? You know, so on and so forth. So I'll say the Bloodline as far as WWE is concerned. To speak on an alternative wrestling company, which is AEW, there is a pending story with someone called Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page. Now, what's interesting about this story is, as when it started off, Swerve was the bad guy and Adam Page was the good guy. And what Swerve did was he went into Adam Page's house.
Literally.
Well,
yeah.
No,
He's the WWE house.
You know, and he was in his house and he was actually playing with Adam Page's newly born child.
Oh shit.
Yeah. But what happens in wrestling, and it's so interesting, is sometimes when someone, like we was talking about villains that get cheered, Swerve was so charismatic and engaging and entertaining, eventually we cheered him. What AEW did, and it was very clever, is they turned the story on its head. And what happened was, instead of Adam Page being the valiant warrior defending his family, he became vengeful because of us and the fact that we chose Swerve over Adam. He has a great engaging promo going, he was in my house and you guys cheered him for it. And that's what turned Adam Page in storyline as the good guy. And what you have Swerve do is, and it's very genius from AEW, is Swerve starts to show more good guy tendencies. Wins cleanly, maybe shows his respect to a certain babyface here and there. He still keeps good heel tendencies because you don't want to betray the character, but he just gives you more things about him that you can root for.
Yes.
And then you have Adam Page. Now he's more of a bad guy. He's doing things that he shouldn't do.
Yes.
He's doing things that are too far for a babyface to do. Now, even though he's justified, you can engage with booing him, and even though Swerve may have it coming, you can engage with cheering for him. So that's one of
That's fascinating.
that's one of the examples.
Fascinating. And also to use the audience.
Yeah.
To use the audience as part of that story, to turn in the 4-4, to be like, he's now addressing you, and now you are part of this. That's amazing.
You're part of the problem, and that happens quite a lot with wrestling, because the thing with wrestling fans is they're very, God, I don't know the word. They're very.
Seems like they're knowledgeable. They
are knowledgeable, and we can see behind the curtain, and at the end of the day we all want to be entertained, so sometimes the most entertaining person who we're going to cheer for. The Rock is an example of someone who would turn heel because he's being booed. So with Swerve and Adam Page, that's an example of what's called a double turn, and that's where two people turn in the same angle. So Swerve turned from bad guy to good guy, Adam Page turned from good guy to bad guy, and they had a very brutal rivalry that hasn't quite yet culminated, but it very much reached a brutal arc, because there was some things that I couldn't believe I was seeing. Things like cinder blocks was used.
Oh shit.
And a needle was stuck in Swerve's mouth. It was a bit it was intense, and to some wrestling fans it might just be uncomfortable, but it was just so fitting for the rivalry, because when someone is touching an unborn child, and Adam Page, I forgot to say this, in retaliation for that, Adam Page burnt down Swerve's childhood home. And that's one of the greatest segments non-wrestling moments I've seen in AEW's history. You know, it's one of those things where the wrestling escalates so much. Not the wrestling. Sorry, the story outside the ring escalates so much. Now the wrestling inside the ring
is now magnified, because do you know the story behind it?
Exactly. It's got to be fit. It's all got to fit.
And that's why the needle's been stuck in his mouth.
Because you can't burn my childhood home, and I can't touch your child, and then we're doing lock up.
Yes.
We're doing wrist lock.
Exactly.
No, I gotta shoot you. I gotta.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So
here's a question on that then. What is your what is your favorite part about wrestling? Is it the storytelling or the actual wrestling inside the ring?
Okay.
Talk to me about
that. So this is funny, because this is like a crazy debate. Some people are like, wrestling does not matter if there's no story to engaging.
Yes.
And some people are like, the story means nothing if the payoff is bad.
Yes.
And I know this is a cop-out.
I like both.
I'm greedy. How greedy? I like both. Please be an athlete, please be a great wrestler, and please tell stories. Please.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm so sorry.
Fair enough.
My favorite wrestlers gave me both. Stone Cold gave me both. Shawn Michaels, The Rock, Undertaker, Triple H, Randy. They gave me both. Please give me both. I know it's a cop-out, but I genuinely feel like the best thing about wrestling is that it's a mesh of amazing athleticism and beautiful storytelling. And if you don't have one of the two, I don't consider you a good professional wrestler.
So who's done both of them the best? Who's had a great story and had an amazing storyline, but also was an impressive athlete in the ring? At their peak.
At their peak,
let's say.
Okay.
And there's a lot. I mean,
there is a lot. I mean, okay. Besides all the
yourself.
aforementioned people, like the Rey Mysterios and the Rocks and the Shawns and whatever, I'm going to say Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson, depending on which company you watch him in, because he's been in WWE and AEW. He's a great storyteller. He's one of the funniest wrestlers ever, but he's also an amazing technician. Another name I'd say is Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle, who actually was in, like, well, not real wrestling, but like non-scripted wrestling. He was in amateur wrestling, and he transitioned to professional wrestling, and he's just one of the best all-round wrestlers ever. One of the great best on the mic, one of the funniest, one of the most intense and scary. Like, brother, when he's wrestling, he's banging them up for real. Like, he's crazy good at it. And then another wrestler I think I'd say, again, I don't want to mention anyone I've already said, is Eddie Guerrero. Obviously he passed, but in his prime he was one of genuinely my favorites. He had like the best personality, like he was so funny, charismatic, and he was one of the people that you could root for him because of how he would talk on the microphone, because the whole point of talking on the microphone is just getting people to think, okay, this is why I should root for you. And Eddie was so good at that, and then he was also good at making me hate him if he wanted to, and not many are that good at both. So I definitely say Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero will always be like maybe one of my top 5 wrestlers ever. So that does.
Speaking on that, then also about looking forward to wrestling. So I'm seeing a trend of people, like for example Logan Paul, right, going into wrestling, and I'm thinking about where wrestling is heading in the future. So talk to me about what you think the future of wrestling is. Is it going to be more of an entertainment where we're seeing other actors or so, like people who are more geared towards presenting that story and presenting that bravado, that will come in to try like make it more of an entertainment thing? Or do you think wrestling is still going to keep its core and remain true to the fans, because at the end of the day the fans are really a part of that cinema that you create? They're really part of that. The audience are really part of that the experience. So where do you think wrestling goes in the future? Do you think it goes more towards the entertainment, or do you think it sticks to its roots?
Okay, that's a good question actually.